They're putting up white-only signs. Here in Missouri, they're trying to start a white-only community. I don't give a fuck what their reasoning is. It's time to speak out. Every random person watching this, it's time. Holy fuck.
Just a heads up. Here in Missouri, they are trying to build like an all-whites community in Springfield, Missouri. Like literally just a neighborhood just full of white people. Like, I don't understand why this is not like making like headlines right now.
My name's Nikki, N-I-K-I, I'm 32. I'm a lady.
This is Return to the Land, a group of millennials who organised online to build something radical and controversial. A town for white people only, that they insist is completely legal.
A whites-only community could be coming to Springfield, Missouri. Yes, you heard that right. In 2025, a whites-only community. There's a group called Return to the Land, a self-declared whites-only organization already based in northern Arkansas. Their co-founder just announced that they're eyeing Springfield for expansion. This isn't just talk. They already own 160 acres of land in Arkansas alone, with cabins, wells, and a so-called community center, all for people with European ancestry. That's code for no black, no brown, no Jewish, no non-Christian people. This is white supremacy dressed up as rural living. It's illegal, it's very hateful, and it has no place in Missouri or anywhere else in America. Well, maybe the White House. But we need to be loud about this. Contact your local reps, share their story. Most importantly, don't be silent.
Hello everybody, welcome back to Profess. Thanks again for choosing us today. We love you all. We appreciate you all for, taking the time and giving us your ears and listening to what we have to say on this platform. All right, we in Missouri. Here's Missouri. For those of us who don't know, the United States as a country and its massive, land and states. Now, Missouri is one of the 50 states in the United States. And the United States is actually one of the biggest countries in the world. I believe the third largest country in the world after Russia and Canada. Now, Missouri is making headlines. For what? They're trying to build a whites-only community in Missouri. Have we heard this before? Of course, right in South Africa. Here's South Africa, one of the countries in Africa. And similar to this, some group of white folks actually built a town and called it Orania. And in this town, you're not welcome if you're melanated. It's a white-only community, a white-only town, and only white people can live in that community. Now, back to Missouri. Missouri is trying to build the same thing. A man named John Wesley Norton is the founder of this initiative. They're trying to build a whites-only community in Missouri in an initiative they're calling Return to the Land. Now, how can someone actually force himself into your home, steal your rooms, and then try to act as if they're not comfortable when you're around? It doesn't make sense. And to make the matters worse, they begin to restrict you, telling you cannot come into this room. This is my room only, in an initiative called Return to My Home. Really, the audacity there. If indeed it's Return to My Home initiative, you should actually move out and go back to where you came from. Well, this is exactly what's happening here in Missouri, because these people had the audacity to call this initiative Return to the Land Initiative. Really? If you really want to return to the land, I think the land that you actually need to return to is up north. You should actually go back and return to Europe if you want to call it Return to the Land Initiative. Well, apparently you cannot also be gay or Jewish in this community. Yet they call themselves a conservative Christian white-only community. Let's take a look at what people are saying. Welcome again to Profess. If you're new, kindly consider subscribing. Hit that like button. Let's take a look. I'll be back with more commentary.
Did Missouri just travel back to the 1950s? Well, this is Trump's America, so probably. According to new reports, a whites-only community could be coming to Missouri, with one already established in Arkansas. A man by the name of John Wesley Norton is trying to build what he calls a conservative, Christian, whites-only community outside of Springfield, Missouri. He says this community is for like-minded people Let's be real, that means racist and segregation. This is in no way about values, this is about exclusion. It's about resurrecting white supremacy under the guise of freedom of association. And Missouri officials, they're silent, as you'd expect. They say nothing illegal is going on and it's private land. Since when did racism need a permit? If you're more upset about people protesting over the human rights violations of immigrants right now than you are about the resurrection of Jim Crow, then you're the problem. This isn't just a Missouri issue, this is a warning. Racism is alive and well, and it's buying land and building fences.
You guys, this is so wild and disturbing. There is a whites-only community being built in the Ozarks. I'm really disturbed. This seems like a reintroduction to segregation. So this community is located on 160 acres of land. It is called Return to the Land. There's about 40 people living on it right now. This includes people of law enforcement and federal agents. Nobody except for whites are allowed on this community compound. You also can't be gay or Jewish. And it is run by this guy right here, Eric Orwell. It's cut off at the top, but he is quoted as saying, "You want a white nation? Create a white town." It can be done, and we're doing it. It says over the last year and a half that they have been building this, what I'm going to call a compound. This movement started organizing online. In an interview with Sky News, this information was found out. I feel like I can't say that, but there were those in references on a public chat in Telegram. There was also 14 words, including and referring to this. And he seems to even go on and support Hitler. Let me show you a little video.
We've done here is establish a place where we have control over who our neighbors are, and that is just for the sake of preserving, our culture.
And that culture, effectively, we're saying this is a white culture, a whites-only place.
White American culture. Yeah, not just white, but white American.
But what this sounds like is bringing back segregation. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, it's free association. So we're not trying to keep other people down. This is a small settlement in the middle of the Ozarks.
But they are being kept out.
You don't let everyone into your home.
This is their symbol. Eric insists that what they're doing is entirely legal. He says it's a private club, so it's exempt from equality legislation. And just so you know, there are plans to expand this in other areas. I thought I'd leave you guys with just a little more information that you're probably going to want to pause and read from Eric Orwell.
My name's Nikki, N-I-K-I, I'm 32. I'm a lady.
This is Return to the Land, a group of millennials who organised online to build something radical and controversial. A town for white people only, that they insist is completely legal. We spent several days with them, watching as the men set about the physical labour of building out the site. All the while, the women of the group took on the more typically trad, homesteading type roles.
I guess I found the people through Twitter that ended up starting this project, actually spearheading it. And I went out to the first April event last year, and it was really fun.
The sort of white-only aspect of this, how important is that to you guys?
Given the premise that it's something that is kind of off limits for whites but is okay by implication for other groups, I do feel it's necessary to carve that out, and you kind of have to do it yourself.
It's kind of like if we don't do this, the laws are only getting worse as far as freedom of association goes, so it's kind of like we have to do this, or there might come a time where it's not possible to.
Are you guys aware people are going to be watching, it's going to be controversial?
I think people just have a large misunderstanding of what's happening here.
Yeah?
Yeah.
What's the biggest misunderstanding?
Well,
that we hate everyone else.
Yeah,
it's not about that.
Yeah,
by any means.
It's a loving movement.
On that aspect of it being loving, I suppose the counter argument would be it could be a very loving community if you're part of the community, but if you're black, or if you're Jewish, or if you're gay, you can't be part of that community.
They can have their own communities, and they already do, and I think that's great for them. And it's like, if other people are allowed to do it, I don't really see why whites aren't allowed to do it. It doesn't make any sense. So it's important for me to do this for my ancestors, my friends, my family, my children, my children's children.
The leader, Eric Orwell, wants the community to grow and further what he calls traditional white American culture. And the group is explicit about this. It has an online fundraiser to give cash rewards to parents of newborns as a means to incentivise population growth. Just before we arrived, they donated $1,000 to a family for having their 6th child.
Is that part of the mission as well, to sort of have big families, to make the community bigger? Is there a sort of pressure there?
I don't feel particularly myself, I don't feel any pressure to like have a big family. I think there's a kind of expectation here that you do want to, as part of helping grow this thing, that you're going to have kids.
A whites-only community could be coming to Missouri in 2025, and yes, you are hearing me correctly. An actual group called Return to the Land is trying to build a segregated whites-only town near Springfield, Missouri. And this isn't parody, and this is not satire. This is happening in America right now. The founder says that they want to return to their roots. But come on, guys, let's be real. This isn't about heritage. This is about hate. This is about building a safe space for white supremacy under the guise of community. And what's even more disturbing, these people feel so fucking emboldened these days that they're not even hiding it anymore. They're openly promoting racial segregation like it's normal, like this country didn't literally fight an actual civil war to end this bullshit. This is what happens when politicians feed the lie that diversity is the problem. This is what happens when you have people in power pushing the idea that America was better when it was whiter. They want to isolate, they want to indoctrinate, they want to raise their kids in a world where no one challenges their racism, their ignorance, or their twisted version of history. So, here's the question. How in the hell are we letting this happen in broad daylight? Where are the zoning boards? Where are the civil rights investigations? And where is the national outrage? Because if they succeed here, this won't be the last. It'll literally be the blueprint. We are watching the normalization of white nationalism one community at a time. And if you're not disturbed by that, you're either racist yourself or you're just not paying attention.
Has everyone seen that community that's being built in America where they are only accepting white Americans into their community that they're building? And recently Sky News went over and actually interviewed these people and asked them what they were basing it off of, basically. And they said that it was just a community of people with similar ancestry to each other. I have another word for this, it's called a sundown town. And also, let's not forget to mention that the double standards are insane, because if this was the other way around and any other race was having a community and wasn't letting white people in, the outrage and the public uproar that would occur is, you can only imagine. This group said in their interview that the community was about freedom and just a community. However, it is nothing other than organised hate. The fact that this is also legal and does not fall under any regulation of discrimination and simply racism is absurd to me, but also not even slightly shocking considering the current state of the USA. And people say that the far right aren't racist or xenophobic or sexist or whatever, but then full on build a community based off race and segregate people based off race. It is genuinely very, very scary times, and the fact that this is accepted, disgraceful.
A whites-only community could be coming to my state of Missouri, and that should be setting off alarm bells for everybody in our state leadership. This isn't some harmless idea floating around online. These are people that felt comfortable enough to publicly announce an incredibly racist plan to drag Missouri and, I guess, the country back to the 1950s. That alone should tell you how little pushback they expect to face here in Missouri. It's bad for our economy. No serious business wants to invest in a state that's making national headlines for being the safe haven of fucking racism. And it's bad for our communities because it sends a message to a whole group of people in our state that they don't belong here. Every time terrible headlines like this pop up, it makes it harder to keep young people here, and it makes it harder to attract new families in a state that looks like they want to keep going backwards into a dark past instead of forward into the future. 25 years ago, countless political leaders went out of the spine to step up and say, we don't want these people here. We don't tolerate you. And we're going to use every tool to keep your racist asses out of our state. But the simple truth is, no one's going to do that this time. And Missouri's just going to look bad.
So they're trying to break ground on a whites-only community in Springfield, Missouri, as early as this year. Not literally in Springfield, Missouri, but adjacent. And they hope that they can build one of these cities in every state in the union. It's called the Return to the Land Initiative. And my brain keeps breaking every time I say return to the land out loud, because there's nothing about white people that screams return to the land. White people can barely go camping without crying. I'm trying to understand the whole return to the land sentiment there, because it sounds eerily similar to return the land or land back for indigenous people. And after that Jubilee episode recently with that one white guy saying that white people are Native Americans, and he truly believed it and people clapped for him, I'd like to see them build this white city. But I would like them to not use any inventions made by any person of color or any immigrant. Like literally everything. Even down to the types of pets that they're allowed to have, actually. Because we don't want any immigrant pets. They have to be from America only. It's just bothersome to me, as a person who is white, to see other white people be so fucking stupid. And the fact that they think that they can actually put one in every state. It's mind-boggling to me. At this point, I'm just starting to feel like any person who is not cis, straight, heterosexual, white, or male, it can't be all of those categories. I think we should just leave. Everyone just fucking pick up, give up, and leave. And let them see how horrible it actually would be. This can't be my reality.
Alright guys, there you have it actually. This story is mind-blowing because America has come so far for it to be taken back to, the 1950s and back to the Jim Crow era. We all know what I'm talking about when, people of this color separated themselves from people of that color. Now, why are these people trying to build a white-only, community in Missouri? Now, it is reported that they have already done that in Arkansas, where they actually own, hundreds of acres. They're trying to expand this initiative called Return to the Land Initiative into Missouri. And the funny thing is that there is no news agency that is actually reporting this. It's not going viral on any kind of news agency. I just saw this story on my FYP, on social media, and I thought this was actually outrageous, and it will be one thing to actually talk about because this very thing is actually happening back in Africa. Yeah, of all the places in the world. Can you believe that? It's happening in Africa. Now, this is South Africa, a country in Africa, and it's the most southern country in Africa. I guess maybe that's why they called it South Africa. In South Africa, there is a white-only community that actually does not allow, melanated people and black folks to live there. And it's known as, or it's called Orania. Now, in Orania, you cannot live in Orania if you are not a white Afrikaans South African. Now, Afrikaners or Afrikaans are descendants of the colonial masters from Europe, places like Germany mostly, in South Africa, living in South Africa, an African country, the continent of melanated people, but they had the audacity to actually, create their own town, their own community in the heart of Africa. I'm trying to make you understand this story. It's not new. It's already happening back in Africa. And I don't know how, these people were able to do this, but they have pulled this actually in South Africa. Now, back to Missouri. This white-only community in Missouri, I get the impression that they might actually be inspired by Orania back in South Africa. And to think that they're trying to do that in a country that has thrived, in diversity, because America wasn't built by one community. It was built by different community working together for the common cause. Well, what we have to put in that statement is that the foundation of America was built on the backs of black folks, and they weren't paid a penny for it, because foundational black Americans were the pillar and the cornerstone of, America as we know it today, because, civil rights movements and everything back to when they were forcefully brought to, the Americas. Now, can you imagine if black folks actually tried to do this in the United States? Can you imagine how viral this would be? Can you imagine the backlash that they would actually get from doing this. The funny thing is that these people are claiming this is private land and they are not breaking any law in doing this. Well, what are we seeing here? This is actually the resurrection of white supremacy under the guise of freedom, because that is exactly what is happening here. A group of people that think they are superior to other people because of the color of their skin. Now, because of that mentality, they have gone ahead and made the initiative to actually, separate themselves from the rest of America by building their own community, by building their own town. And they're actually arguing that black folks have their own community. Of course they do. Hispanic people have their own community. Of course they do. But you'll never find a town or a city where black people only city or town. If actually it's happening, it's out of volition of people who do not want to live there, not because melanated people are actually telling them you cannot live here. We only, live as melanated people, or Hispanics telling other people, you cannot live here. We are only Hispanic people are allowed in this place. No, it's actually out of the volition of other people. Now, for you guys to go ahead and tell other people that this is a white-only community and no other people can actually live here, including you cannot be gay and you cannot be Jewish in that community. Wow, this is outrageous. Can you believe if Hispanics actually did that? Can you believe if, black folks try to do that? And this is what happens when politicians try to push an agenda that diversity is a problem, because this is what they did with DEI. Diversity, equity, and inclusion. When they rolled back DEI everywhere, they were pushing the narrative that DEI is the problem in the society. In other words, diversity is a problem. How can diversity be a problem when the country's own backbone is built on diversity? Because America is not America without diversity. Because we got Hispanics in America, we got black folks in America, we got Europeans in America, we got, people from all over the world in America. Everybody is working for a common good in America. And for these people to actually go ahead and call this the Return to the Land initiative, do you actually get the joke here? Because return to what land? If you actually need to return to any land, you actually have to return back north, back to Europe, because that is where you came from. Now, to go ahead and call this the Return to the Land initiative, it's actually an absolute joke and it doesn't make sense at all. You should have actually called it Return the Land initiative, and maybe it should have actually made a little bit of sense. But let me know in the comments, guys, what do you think about today's episode? What do you think about, this group of people actually coming to Missouri and trying to, put and install a white-only community? What is your opinion about that? Thank you very much for tuning in to Profess. Subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and see you on the next episode. Peace out.